Hi everyone, welcome. In this video, we want to build a UI design for this mobile phone, this old Samsung Galaxy Grand 2 phone. It has almost all the features like the original phone does. We have the power band here, we also have the volume keys over here. We have these icons over here for the network and also for the battery. We have this little time at the corner here. We have almost everything close to the original phone. So this project was actually inspired by my old Samsung Galaxy Grand phone. I saw it was like, why not build something like this? So let's get started. So over here, I have VS Code open with actually nothing fancy going on. We have one images folder, have one index.html, one style.css. In the images folder, we have the battery icon, the icon for the mobile network, and also the background for the phone. And over here, I'll close this and we'll go to the index.html. We don't have anything inside, it's empty currently. We also have the style.css where I remove all the margin, the padding, and set box size into border box. So we'll come back to the index.html and create the basic HTML boilerplate. So tap exclamation and hit tab, and it generates the boilerplate for us. So we can remove this title and give it a title that's descriptive of what we're building. So I'll call it phone. And we want to link the HTML to the CSS. So we'll type link and set the href to style.css in my case. So we'll come to the body tag and create a div and give it a class container. And we can style this in the CSS. So now let's select the container class, give it a width 100%, height 100 VH, display flex, align items, center, justify content, center. Now I want to run this code with the VS Code Live Server extension. I 1000% recommend you have this extension. Now we have this blank web page. So let's continue with the HTML. If you see the original phone we are building, you can see that we have some layers of border around it. So let's add that in the HTML. Now in the container div, we want to create a div and give it a class outer container. And inside this div, we'll create another div and give it a class inner container. And inside the inner div container, we'll create another div and give it a class phone wrapper. Now let's start these divs in the CSS. We'll start with the outer container. Set display flex. Align items center. Justify content center. Border 2 pixels solid black. Border radius 70 pixels. Now let's start the inner container. Set display flex. Align items to center. Justify content center. Give it a border. Two pixels solid, this RGB color code. Give border radius 70 pixels as well. Now let's start the phone wrapper. We'll give it a width. And a height. So we'll set a border. Black. So border radius 70 pixels. We'll give it a background color. This RGB color code. And we'll give the container div a background color. So let's give it a background. This RGB color code. And be sure to spell this very well. Container. And when I save this, we now have this container for our phone on the web page. So now we can put everything we want inside of it. In the phone wrapper div, we want to create another div and give it a class front view. In this div, we'll create another div and give it a class upper container. In this upper container div, we'll create 4 spans. The first one, we'll give it a class speaker. The next one will be light. So we'll copy this and paste again. And also give it another class. We'll call it blue light. And the last one will be camera. Will be for the camera. So we'll change this one to camera. And let's give the CSS styling. So let's start with the front view. We'll give it a width 100%. Height. Now the upper container. We set the width as well 100%. Set display. Flex. We'll give it some padding. 0 top and bottom and 50 pixels left and right. And now let's start the span with the class speaker. In the upper container, we have the class speaker. Give it a width. Also give it a height. 10 pixels should be okay. Give it some border. And pixel solid black. When we save this, so we have this box over here. So we can set display. So we'll give it some padding. 0 for top and bottom and 3 pixels left and right. Set the background color. This RGB color code. Now you can see we have this here, but there is no indication that this is a speaker. So let's put some buttons inside of it. In the HTML, go back here, speaker. Put some buttons there, then we can copy this and paste like 10 more times. So now we have something. So let's start this. So this time we'll select the speaker. Set the width. So now let's start the light. It's a class. Set display. Now we want the second light to have a blue color. So we give it a different class. Upper container, we give it a class blue light. So you can change the background color to blue. So now let's start the camera. So display flex. Set the background color to this RGBA color code. Now you can see we have this camera here, we have the lights over here and the speaker. When you see this phone, inside the camera, you see that we have a little more darker color inside of it. So let's add that in the HTML. In the camera, we'll put a span. Now let's style it. So we'll select it. So the background color, we still put the same RGBA color as this one. So now you can see it's looking okay, just like this one over here. Now after the upper container div, we want to create another div and give it a class phone text. Inside of it, we'll create a paragraph tag. I will put the text Samsung, all in caps. So let's start this in the CSS. So we select the div with the class phone text. Now let's start the paragraph tag inside of it. Set display block. And this is color, not column. So now we have this text over here. After this div, we want to create another div again and give it a class button keys. This is where we have the power button and also the volume keys. So we'll create one div and give it a class power button. And after this one, we'll create another div and give it a class volume button. So we can start this now. Let's start with a div with a class button key. We give it a relative position. So let's start the volume button. Give it a width and height. So I'll copy this, change this. So now let's start the power button. This is button keys. Give it a width 4 pixels. Give it a background color. This color code. Switch out 4 pixels. We'll copy and paste. Change this one to bottom. Set position absolute. When I save this, now you see we have the power buttons here and also here. Like this one doesn't have the cursor pointer property, so let's add it. So in the power button, set cursor to pointer. Now it's working. Now after the buttons, we'll create a div for the screen. Inside this div, we'll create another div with a class screen display. Inside of this screen display is where we have these icons for the battery, for the network, and also this time. So we'll add that IMG images in this mobile network. And after this, IMG images, we have the battery. And after this, we have a tag for the time. So say 12 o'clock, 1200. Now let's start the div with the class phone screen. We give it 90%, height 80%. We give it a background image, a linear gradient. We give it this RGB color code, and with a comma, the same code. And after this, we want to link a URL, an image. So we'll say URL images, and to use the background, the wallpaper. Now we set background repeat to no repeat. Background size to contain. Background position, center. Background attachment to fix. Sure to remove this, center. And when we save this, you can see now our thing is looking like a phone, but the icons are way too big. So let's style it. Now let's style the div with the class screen display inside the phone screen. Background image, linear gradient. Give it this RGB color code with a comma. The same thing, but this time we change the alpha value to 0.7. Set display flex. Give it some padding. So now let's start the images inside this div. Just an icon, so we can select screen display, the IMG. Give it a width 20 pixels. Now let's start the paragraph. Set display inline block. So now this is looking okay. Now we're left with the time, the date, this display over here, and also the buttons here. So let's go. So after this div, we'll create another div and give it a class screen time. We'll create an H2 for the time. We'll create an H4 for the date. And after this div, we'll create another div with the class screen unlock. And we'll give it a text swipe screen to unlock. So let's start this. So select the div with the class screen time inside the phone screen div. So we'll start the H2 inside this div. I want this to be times. No, yes. Now we can style the H4. Text align should be center. For this one, we can just copy this one, the font family. Now let's start the screen unlock div. We set the width 100%. Now our phone is looking way beautiful, but it seems this one is too close. So we should make it 7% instead of 7 pixels. Now it's looking good. So now we are left to the buttons here for everything to be completed. Now after the closing phone screen div, we want to create another div and give it a class controls. In this div, we want to create an H1. In this H1, we want to insert a symbol. So press on Control, Command, and Space, and it brings you to the symbol. So you have to scroll a whole lot before you get here. And we want this symbol. And after this H1, we'll create another div and give it a class Options key. And in this one, we'll create a span. And after this Controls div, we'll create another div and give it a class Home button. So let's give the CSS styling. Now let's start styling with the Home button. It's inside the front view div. So set the width to 80 pixels. Give it some border. This RGB color code. Give it some box shadow. This RGB color code. Then we can copy this one. And with the camera, we'll paste it here. And we'll negate this one. Also negate this one. But the blur effect won't touch it. And these ones are the color displacement for the right, to the right, and also to the bottom. So this is a negative one. So it goes to top and left. Now when I save this, now you see everything disarranged. So let's start the controls so that everything gets in place. So let's select the control. Give it a relative position. Now let's start the H1 inside the controls div. And now let's start the option keys. What is this? It's inside the controls div. Give it a width 20 pixels. Now let's start the span inside the options div. So controls, set display block. width 14 pixels, height 2 pixels, background color should be white. And when we save this isn't working. What is the problem? Okay, so we'll have to move this from here. We'll cut it from here and put it inside this div. It should be inside the front view div. And when we save this time around, everything should work. Yeah, so then now our project is complete. So folks, this is basically how we've come to the conclusion of this video, how we build this gorgeous looking phone using HTML and CSS. If you find any value in this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more tutorials like this one. If you have any question, feel free to leave it in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.